Sankhya philosophy and so many different philosophies. But Sankhya philosophy, even if you go deeply into the depths of it, any of these philosophies, they don't come to this point of understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we're His eternal servants. We're thinking, everyone knows that. But they don't. It's not, everyone doesn't know that. To understand that clearly is not a very normal thing. Even in India, so many cultured people, but philosophically, they're not very clear. It's very difficult to find anyone who's very clear, even in these sampradayas. They don't know, they're all mixed up. Most of these Sri Vaishnavas, now there's this bogus Kalki avatar in South India. And so many people, mostly from Brahmin families, are following and saying, no, their spiritual sense is covered over by the same thing, sense gratification. So they can't understand, and they're all mixed up with Mayavad. Even coming in good sampradaya, Sri Vaishnava. Madhvas, they're so heavy against Mayavad, it's more difficult for them to become Mayavadis. Madhva was so heavy against Mayavad. But nowadays even, their children, they won't follow. Their children are brought up in the sense gratification society. I've been in Madhva families' homes, and they have the foreign TV. From the childhood, the children have more exposure to this than to their traditions. The grandfather will be sitting in the puja room offering puja, and the kids will be running around and screaming, watching MTV. 24 hours a day in India you can watch monkey music, people jumping around and screaming and yelling, shaking their heads with all their hair. This hairstyle, this kind of Jimi Hendrix Sai Baba hairstyle, this is for Rakshasas. It's not for human beings. So this is expressive of the mentality of a bloodsucker, of an extremely sinful person. So they don't know, the Brahmin family, they're watching this. And sports, this is another. It's just a complete illusion that is spread. It's such a big thing now. Millions of dollars they're spending for sports. Someone, because they're expert at kicking a ball or hitting it, there's so many different, there's tennis, you hit a ball with a racket. Golf, you go like this. In football, you kick it. And so many different kinds. Rugby, football, rugby league, American rules, Australian rules, so many varieties of football. And people, some oath. You have that word in German. In some big guy like this. What's his qualification? He's good at kicking a ball around or something. I mean, what kind of qualification is this? And they get millions of dollars for it. Some guy from the slum who can hardly sign his own name. And these are the heroes of modern society. So it's just, and this is, you see, even in India, previously you go in people's homes in India and they'll be like this, pictures, or at least some demigods. Now they're very popular among young boys in their rooms. They have pictures of these guys who look like buffaloes, there's like huge, completely unnatural. I mean, it's not normal. You have to do lots of exercises and you have to take all kinds of drugs, and then you get this huge body. And now have you seen in America, maybe here also, they have these things, women's weightlift, women's bodybuilding. So have you seen that? The women, they're also, it's just insane. I don't know what words are there for this. So now they're having pictures of this and pictures of some guy. The more demoniac they look, the more interested they have to have their picture in their home. Some guy. Yeah, I saw in this magazine they put on the train because the great hero of the modern age, Michael Jackson, came to Berlin, right? So they had his photo. And he's just, his whole act is to just look like, I just saw one photo, I could understand from it. He's just promoting some image of being like a Rakshasa. And that people are attracted to that. Just see, what is their nature? We're promoting, here is Krishna. Very beautiful, playing on the flute, and they're not interested. There's some Rakshasa. They're interested in this. So it's a very unfortunate condition of human society. But still, in the midst of this, promoting Krishna consciousness. You can take to Krishna consciousness. When you're completely fed up, burned out, there's still hope. I was saying there was some girl at the program there on Sunday, just looked like a zombie, just sitting there, just looked like just too much sense gratification. Can't think, can't talk, nothing. But even in such a hopeless position, maybe if you do come to a hopeless position, and there's still hope, great hope in Krishna consciousness. The only hope. Otherwise, it's either you take to Krishna consciousness and dance with Krishna, or you have to dance with very demoniac. We should be very clear about this. We shouldn't have this kind of sentimental approach that, oh yeah, everyone's very nice. They are very nice because they're devotees of Krishna, but they're not acting nicely now. They've forgotten their devotion to Krishna. And being misled by the demoniac propaganda, people are living very sinful lives. They think it's normal. They're drinking, and it's very demoniac. You see that. When people drink, and isn't it, they become, there's this whole aura around them, very demoniac. It's just a few weeks ago, myself and Nitai, we came we came late in the middle of the night, we came into London, and then we got a train, we were running in the middle of the night into the centre of London, and there's all these people coming out of the clubs and just drunk and falling down and shouting. And by their accent, we could understand they were rather high class British people, but when they're drunk, they may be so-called high class, but they're just like animals, or worse, like savage animals, not just animals. There's animals and there's like savage animals. That aura, when you become drunk, then you want to become violent. It's very sinful. People just take it as normal. So it's a very dangerous society we're living in, very dangerous for spiritual life. We should be very careful not to be attracted to that. We have to preach in this demoniac society, not hating the people, not condemning them, but condemning their way of life. We should understand that it's not at all auspicious. There's nothing about this modern civilization which is auspicious. It's just completely in the wrong direction. But if we can give them Krishna consciousness, that is the only hope. If they don't become Krishna conscious, then it's a very, very, very black future. So ourselves, we should be very clear about this. As much as possible, cultivate this Krishna conscious culture. Everything, you see, the whole culture, everything is designed. Culture means that which cultures, just like you culture a sense of Krishna consciousness. Krishna Anushilanam, that term is there. Just like yogurt culture, you put something in and it changes the milk changes its nature. So everything in Krishna conscious culture, just like rising early in the morning, taking bath, kind of clothes we wear, putting on tilak, all these things, cultivating spiritual knowledge by reading Bhagavad Gita. So all these practices, they culture a sense of Krishna consciousness. They're all favorable for Krishna consciousness. Whereas listening to heavy music, watching football, or even just like these genes and this and that, it works in the opposite way. Of course, that's not a major. I mean, wearing jeans is not the same as drinking beer. It's in a different category. But the point is that it's associated with that culture of nescience. So, alright, we're living in Berlin, or you're living in Berlin. So, in many ways, you can't help but interact with that culture, because culture also means the way of people live their lives. So you have to adjust to that somewhat, otherwise you can't live in the city. To some extent, you have to adjust. There's certain rules of social behavior. But we should understand that as much as possible we have to become cultured in the Krishna conscious way. As much as possible. That will protect us. Even if people find that unusual, we should still stick to our principles as much as possible. Because anyway, our aim is not to become, we don't want to be normal. If what they call normal, that normality, that is madness. We have a different standard. But all these things are very valuable. Just like if you dress like a devotee, it gives you strength. It gives you mental strength to live as a devotee. And it depends on your consciousness also, because many devotees say, well, people will think we're strange and this and that. I personally, I don't have that experience. I'm going around. I put on kami clothes when we were driving in Bosnia, because there's some dangerous areas. If you're dressed as a devotee, and it's a Muslim country, and they've still got a lot of guns and pretty heavy people. You don't know what's going to happen. Otherwise, I go everywhere. And I'm just citing this as an example. I'm not saying you'll have to change your lifestyle overnight. I'm just giving it as an example. That I'm going everywhere in devotee clothes, tilak and everything. And I don't find any problem at all, actually. I speak to people, they ask me questions, why are you dressed like that, what is this Krishna consciousness? If you yourself have a sense of self-confidence, I feel perfectly comfortable to be like this. And even if people were to be against me, it wouldn't bother me, because I know that this is life, Krishna consciousness. And people respond to that. They respond, and they respond in a positive way. And even if they're like last year, I was coming on a plane and some guy spoke to me sarcastically, but I just spoke to him really straight back, and then he just changed his attitude. And then he became a little humble and started inquiring. So if we are confident, which we should be, because we have Krishna with us, then we're on a very strong platform. We should be convinced of this, that Krishna consciousness is the fact. That this whirling, swirling combinations and permutations of material nature, this isn't reality. Now we're born in this country and we're thinking, I'm a German. It's not going to last very long. You're not going to be German very long. Then you'll be in some other body, some other country, some other planet. You may be a German dog or a cat. That's also possible. But this isn't reality. We should be convinced of that. This life of sense gratification, this is not reality. This robs us of the real sense of reality, which is to understand Krishna. So Krishna can be understood by hearing and chanting about Him. By hearing and chanting about Krishna, we experience Krishna, the reality of Krishna. It's not just a sentiment. It's not just a figment of the imagination. So that as much as possible, we have to be absorbed in this and be very careful not to be sucked into that culture. It's trying to suck us in. There's advertisements, the TV, cinema, the shops have so many things. Come and enjoy. Spend all your money. Enjoy all these things in the shops. Fly to Paris, 299 marks, and enjoy. Even the way people their social dealings, people behave with you in such. That's why I'm saying you have to be very careful about this culture, because people act with you as if you're another enjoyer, and they expect you to respond in that way. So if you're dressed in kami clothes, then it may be that just like I had this experience several times. So many of our devotees, if you're selling some non-devotional paraphernalia, it's a very dangerous thing. You go dressed in kami clothes, and then you're confident, you're cheerful, you're selling something, so you're pushing something, and the young ladies, they also respond. They think you're just an enjoyer of the material world. So they respond to you, oh, he's aggressive, selling something, pushing. They respond. So it's very dangerous. So we should be convinced that, no, this is not my life. My life this is life, Krishna consciousness. And it's another thing, we keep ourselves in Krishna conscious culture as much as hearing, chanting, associated with devotee. Even if you go dressed like this, then you show, yes, my life is different. I'm for Krishna consciousness. This is our uniform, which says, no meat eating, no illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling. You can think I'm crazy, I don't care. I know that you are crazy. This is reality. There's no sense in their whole way of life. Get drunk, pass urine, talk nonsense, fall down on the ground, and wake up the next morning with a headache. And this is This is all a civilization. What is this based on this? And then children are born. That John Lennon said most children are born on Saturday night over a bottle of whiskey. So that's true. People get drunk and then they have children. What kind of children are coming from that? Produced out of the greatest ignorance. So it's we should know clearly what is the distinction between demoniac civilization and actual civilization. Actual civilization means the simple life, chant Hare Krishna, try to understand Krishna. Be renounced from this sense gratification, even though there's so much propaganda. Enjoy, 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 enjoy. You just see, you don't enjoy. And the more you pick up this enjoying mood, the more you become degraded. And the more you renounce the enjoying mood, the more you become elevated, become advanced in spiritual life. Hare Krishna. Is there any question?
If we meet one person who has a misconception about Krishna consciousness,
they all have misconceptions. None of them know what it's about.
And he sucks to it, should we smash him?
You have to see the situation. What do you mean? Someone who's saying Krishna consciousness is a very bad thing?
Yeah, just always saying the same thing.
What do they say?
They have this conception that we meditate, or some persons that we meditate like this normal.
Oh, then if that's not, then you can just tell them, no, we meditate by chanting the names of Krishna. What do you mean, if they're very sarcastic like this? No, if they're sarcastic, then we can be sarcastic with them too. If they have misconception where they think we're like Buddhists, isn't it? And we can explain to them. You know what? If they're willing to listen, we can explain. Yes, we meditate. We meditate by chanting the names of Krishna. Meditation means to fix the mind, so the mind should be fixed on Krishna. No, we don't have to smash everybody. That's sometimes required, not always.
One girl from our Mahata groups raised a question about the Yamadutas, and she was asking what kind of souls are the Yamadutas, because the service that they're
offenders to Vaishnavas.
Sorry?
Those who commit offenses to Vaishnavas, they become Yamadutas.
Because she was saying actually the service is very tough to justice the form, or to justice the soul in such a way. What's going on in the hell? It's so violent and everything. And then she was saying those must be very sinful persons.
Yeah. They take pleasure in that. You can't do it unless you take pleasure. Just like I was saying, in this war in Sarajevo, people are taking pleasure in torturing others. There's so many stories. Germany has a bad reputation for that. How they took pleasure in torturing. So they're experiencing some kind of pleasure because their mentality of love of Krishna is so much perverted wrongly that instead of being kind to all living beings, they're nasty to all living beings. And they take a pleasure in that. That I heard. One devotee I know, he's a very learned scholar. He's not in ISKCON, he's Gauriya Vaishnava. He told me that he'd read in the writing, Bhaktivinoda Thakur had written that those who are offenders to Vaishnavas, they become Yamadutas.
But Yamaraj is a devotee of Lord Krishna.
Yeah, he's a devotee, but he has a certain job to do. It's not a very nice job, but someone has to do it. Only a devotee, he doesn't take pleasure in it, but he can do it. He has the equilibrium of mind to be able to do it.
Is this incomparable to that Arjuna had to fight on the battlefield from Kurukshetra, even if he didn't want
There may be many things that we may not want to do, but the material world is a nasty place. We'd rather the whole place was closed down, but there are envious living beings like us who come here, and so they have to be administered to. Just like in the state, the government, They want that all the citizens would be good, and then they don't have to have a police department. They have to have a police department. Policeman means he's supposed to be, now it's an example given. Nowadays I don't know exactly what the situation is. Policeman he's a good man. He's supposed to be a good man. So to the ordinary citizens, they don't fear him. They think, they look, he is our protector. But to the criminals, he's rough. He has to be. To curb them.
Those who are getting Sarupya or Sarukya,
Sarupya and what's the second one?
Other three kinds of do they have developed love to Krishna, or do they have rather a neutral relationship?
No, love is there. Love is there. That's 5 kinds of liberation. Is sayuja, means impersonal liberation. Love is not developed. But sarupya means you get the same form as the Lord. Salokya means that you live on the same planet. Samipya means you live close to Him. And sarshti means you get the same opulence. So that means you're accepted as a servant of the Lord in a loving relationship. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught love on an even higher standard than that. But that verse is there. Samipya salokyam sarshti sarupyam kaivalyam ekamityuta diyamanam nagrinnanti vinamat sevanam jana. That verse is there in the Bhagavatam. Kapila Dev says that my devotees, they don't accept these kinds of liberation unless they have the opportunity to serve me. So the main desire of the devotee is to serve Krishna, and they accept these liberations for the sake of serving Him. So that is a relationship of love. Sometimes our devotees think there's only love in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sampradaya. It's not true. You'll find in the especially in the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya that loving relationship is very, sense of love of God is very much developed. The songs and the devotees are pouring out their hearts in love of Krishna. The service of the devotees in the spiritual world in Vaikuntha, it's not service that 9 o'clock they clock in, 5 o'clock they clock out, and they get, 100 marks a day or something. It's not like that. Serving out of love. There's one sign I saw in one city in India. In Hindi it's written, Nokari charo vyapakaro. Means don't give up service and start your own business. And they're offering a bank loan to start your business. Because it's considered demeaning. Even now, in India it's considered demeaning to do so. The higher castes, they would never do service for anybody. Vaishyas, Kshatriyas and Brahmanas. So the idea, service is bad, do your own business, be independent. The idea of service is very bad because then you're under someone's control, and the boss in the factory can tell you, you rascal, blah, blah. And what can you do? What can you say? Because he's paying you. So it's not like that in the spiritual world. It's an exchange of love. And it's not done by force. That's why people ask, how can you fall from the spiritual world? Because we have independence. It's not by force. We can choose not to serve Krishna. It's all loving relationship. That loving relationship is much more developed in the Krishna Loka planet than the Vaikuntha planet. But love is the basic principle of Krishna consciousness. That love means, today we discussed about renunciation. So that love means not the love of the material world, which is based on mutual sense gratification, but love for Krishna with no personal desire. And that lack of personal desire becomes so much developed more and more in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings as we go to Krishna Loka and then to Vrindavan, then to the highest rasa of Madhurya Rasa, because there's no personal desire, even the Vaikuntha planets, but there's still some respect for Krishna, in awe and reverence. But even that gets surpassed in the higher levels of Krishna consciousness. But it's all, from our point of view, it's all higher level. We shouldn't think, Vaikuntha, it's not very good. From our point of view, we're still contemplating the objects of the senses in the material world. So when we get to the Vaikuntha level, then we should discuss what are levels within that level. But the Vaikuntha Vasis, they're liberated souls, pure devotees. Vaikuntha Vasi means the residence of Vaikuntha. So let's go there. Let's not stay in Berlin drinking beer.
How shall I behave if I hear somebody is blaspheming a devotee?
Yeah, well, there's three things you're supposed to do. You're either supposed to cut out his tongue, defeat him philosophically, or leave that place. So, although Shastra states that we should cut out his tongue, practically in modern life it's not been recommended. We don't recommend the members of the Krishna conscious movement to do that. So you either defeat him or you leave the place. But you shouldn't tolerate that. Means if you can defeat him, you should defeat him. And if you can't defeat him, you should leave the place. And if you don't do either of these things, you become implicated in that offense. I was just showing yesterday one book which was written by someone who was officially initiated by Prabhupada, but who's not actually a Prabhupada disciple, because in his book he's interviewing some scholar, and he asked the scholar about, what do you think of Prabhupada's translation of the Bhagavatam? And the scholar says, well, actually he couldn't translate it properly, he didn't know how to translate. He blasphemes. Prabhupada said, this is my topmost contribution, Srimad Bhagavatam. This is my devotional ecstasy. Pure devotee, not only a pure devotee, but a Mahabhagavat, great even among Mahabhagavats, and his topmost contribution is Srimad Bhagavatam. And this rascal scholar criticizes and says he doesn't know how to translate it properly. And so the so-called disciple of Prabhupada says yes. He doesn't disagree with him. He doesn't fold up his book and leave. He says yes, and then asks the next question. It means he's become implicated in the offense. So if there's blasphemy, it's very serious. By hearing it, or if we continue to, you see, you should either defeat the person. If you're not in a position to defeat them, you don't feel confident to defeat them, then you have to leave the place. Because if you remain in their company, if you go on hearing, then it's just like you're agreeing with what they're saying. Then you also become fallen. It's the most serious thing is blasphemy of Krishna and his devotees. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he preached Trinadapi Sunichena Tarari Vasahishna Amanina Amanadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. What is the mood of a Vaishnava? Very humble. Humble more than a blade of grass. More tolerant than a tree. Wanting to give respect to others. Not wanting to take respect for himself. Always chanting the holy names. But he was ready to kill Jagai and Madhav, because they offended Lord Nityananda by attacking him. So on his own behalf, a devotee, he doesn't promote himself. He's willing to accept blasphemy of himself. Although he doesn't encourage it, because it's not. He should understand that it's not good for someone who's blaspheming him. But if another devotee or if Krishna is blasphemed, he doesn't accept it. You have to become very strong. You turn the light on there?
Sometimes if you go on Sankirtan, some people kind of blaspheming you or being nasty to you. So should you react to just leave them or just...
Yeah, there's no point in getting into a whole thing on the street. When you're out distributing books, if someone's just coming on badly, the best thing is to leave them and just go on to the next person. Although sometimes Krishna gives some inspiration, how you can just smash them on the spot. And sometimes they can even take books. But that has to come as some... You have that experience? If the inspiration comes, otherwise you can just leave them and go on to the next person. That's all. The aim when we're out on the street is not to convert everyone on the spot. It's not possible. We're not Lord Nityananda. We're the servants of Lord Nityananda. We should distribute books. That will have its effect. But when you're out distributing books, many times we got